Jing-a-jing, jing-a-jing, jing-a-jing. Hello, I'm not Scott Manley. Oh, and I sounded so authentic there for a while. I've got a weirdness going on. My 3 geosynchronous satellites, as you can see, whilst they're still geosynchronous, excuse a little video rubbish going on here, they are not in the triangle they used to be in. This one, where am I going? This chap has moved forwards in its orbit quite considerably, and it wasn't like that the last time I started KSP. Here is a quick lesson on how to get something into an orbit that you want it in. What a lot of people, and I did this when I first started, I didn't realise that to change my orbit, I didn't want to point in the direction I wanted to go in and burn. Or, for instance, if I wanted to land on Kerbal, I figured that I had to just point at Kerbal and light the engines. It doesn't work like that. What you've got to remember is, even when you're not burning your engines, you're still travelling at a considerable speed. When you're in a stable orbit, of course, you're still travelling at a considerable speed around the planet or moon or whatever you're doing. So for you to slow down or burn retrograde, this will cause your orbital distance around the planet to reduce, which is what I'm going to do here on this maneuver node. Yes, make jeb, yeah, whatever, get on with it. As I reduce the orbital, sorry, actually, I'm slightly wrong here. I'm going to increase my orbital distance. I'm sure there's a proper term for it. What that'll do is it will mean that I will orbit planet Kerbal slightly slower than the other probes. This will mean that I will, over time, as we will see in a few seconds as I work out what I'm doing, that I will reposition this probe back into its correct orbital position with relationship to the other 2 probes. I believe the one that's in default is probe number 2. Why this happened, I don't know. I logged out last night and it was fine. I logged in this evening and it was all wrong. So we'll start increasing time and we'll get to a point where we can reposition this probe. A very quick 101. What I was trying to get at earlier was, if you want to land on Kerbal, you need to burn retrograde, which will decrease your orbit, so that you eventually land, ideally, nice and gently, on Kerbal. My problem when I first started this game was I thought I just had to point in the direction that I wanted to go to. For instance, if I was trying to rendezvous with another ship, I just pointed at that ship and lit the blue touch paper. It doesn't really work like that, as I soon found out. Took me a long time, even when I used MechJeb, maybe MechJeb actually slowed me down, to realise that you don't burn towards what you want to get at unless you're very close. Here you can see that the distances are getting better. What I want is, there we go, 3, a little triangle appearing, make it a little bit bigger, try and get it nice and not equilateral, but that's better. There we go. Why it moved, I don't know. Anyway, so we'll get that back in position. I was intending to connect Minmus to my Kerbal network. I come across a problem. What I'm trying to do, what I want to do, is to get 2 probes on the same orbit as Minmus, but not within their sphere of influence. Which means that I have a relatively small window. I sat down a while ago and worked out on a piece of paper what the distance was that I had to be. Basically, I have something like 250,000 kilometers. Sounds a lot, it's not. I have to be outside of the sphere of influence that I can orbit Kerbal and not orbit Minmus, but I have to be within 250,000 kilometers just outside that sphere of influence, so that I can keep communications with those small 12 satellites that you recently saw on Minmus The theory is very good. Actually doing it is proving to be a bit awkward. I had a little play last night. It didn't really work out quite that as well as I'd hoped. I got one. Actually, I did it with 2 probes and I crashed both of them into Minmus because I ended up fast forwarding a little bit too much. 10,000 speed is, quite frankly, a stupid speed to orbit at when you're that close. 1,000 is probably too fast, but yes, it is definitely too fast. Anyway, there we go. End of that. It's really just to show how to get reposition probes when you're in orbit. Could also help with rendezvous. Burn retrograde to decrease your orbit height, which will increase the speed at which you orbit around the planet, and vice versa. Burn prograde, you'll increase your height, which will decrease the orbital speed, which is what I just did here to pull that satellite back into its proper position. Anyway, end of the video. Bye bye.